Hi, hi guys, this is a video on sketching parabolas using the quadratic formula. So if we look back onto our the quadratic formula, we did this briefly in class. When a quadratic is in the standard form with a as a coefficient of x squared, b x and c as the constant equals 0, we can use this this formula here to work out the x-intercepts, or solve for x, and usually if there's two answers, it will give you a, so this is what the plus or minus bit here does. Okay, that'll tell you, give the two answers. In this case, it is the x-intercepts. We also talked about something called a discriminant, which is this little triangle thing here. Okay, so that actually, if you work that out, which actually happens to be the bit underneath the square root sign in the quadratic formula, if you work that out first, it can tell you, so if it's greater than 0, so if it's positive, it'll have two intercepts. If it's equal to 0, there'll be one intercept. In fact, that will be a perfect square. And if it's less than 0, there'll be no x-intercept, so it won't touch the x-intercept x-axis at all. Finally, something would be new to you, hope this last thing here. The axis of symmetry can be found using this formula here, this little formula. Obviously, so all these A's, B's and C's come back to this original formula, and you substitute in whatever the quadratic is, A, B and C. Okay, with the axis of symmetry, once you've worked that out, you've got the x coordinate of the turning point, and you can sub that back into the original equation to get the y version of that, so you can work out the turning point from this too. Okay, so we're basically using a formula, and this one's good because it works for any quadratic, not just, okay, so if it's got a coefficient in front of x squared, it works for anything, not just the simple ones. Okay, so let's just have a look at an example here. So we're looking at this parabola given by the equation y equals, there it is there, so we've got three things. So the A is going to be 3. This is, A equals 3, B equals -6. Okay, don't forget that negative in front, and C is equal to 5. Okay, so there are the three things we need to know for all our calculations. Okay, and so the question asks us to do three things: determine the number of x-intercepts, determine the y-intercept, and use that small equation to find the turning point. Okay, so actually I'm going to do this a different way. I'm going to determine the y-intercept first. Okay, because that's, in this case, when something's in this form, this is the easiest to do. So I'm going to do B first. So if we substitute, so let x equals 0, we'll find the y-intercept. So what happens is, if we do that, y equals 3 times 0 squared plus, minus 6 times 0 plus 5, and we're going to get 5. Okay, so as you know, the constant in this equation like this is going to be the y-intercept. Okay, so the second part there, we're going to need to substitute. So we're doing A now. We're going to need to substitute these values into our quadratic formula, which I'll actually just stop. So I've just brought that down to give you a bit of a reference. So it's in the picture. We substitute in all these values. So we're trying to find x. We have negative b. Now in this case, b is -6. So negative of -6 is actually going to be positive, but we'll do that in the next step. Square root of b squared, so -6 squared minus 4 times 3 times c, which is 5. We put that all over 2 times 3. Okay, so now it's just a matter, if we've substituted that in right, it's just a matter of working through it to get our answer. So let's do that. So -6 is 6, plus or minus, now the square root. Now -6 squared is 36, minus 4 times 3 times 5, so 4 times 3 is 12, 12 times 5 is 60, over 6. Okay, so So what we're going to look at here, and before we go too much further, let's just take a look at this bit under the square root here. Okay, what you might find is this actually becomes negative. Okay, so this, let's write it out. So 36 take away 60 is negative 24. And we can stop right there, because once we have a negative under a square root, in fact, this is actually our discriminant. I remember I said that bit under the square root is our discriminant. If that is negative, there are no x-intercepts. So I can actually write that, no x-intercepts. Okay, this one sits wherever it is. It sits above the x-axis, or it doesn't touch the x-axis. Okay, the final thing here is the turning point. So we've got this little formula here. Stop. Okay, so this little formula here will give us our x axis of symmetry. So let's substitute that in now. X equals negative. Now b is, let's say that's negative 6 over 2 times a is 3. Okay, I'm going to leave that negative out there. Okay, so let's do negative 6. Now 2 times 3 is 6, so negative 6 on 6 is going to be, let's think about negative 6 divided by 6 is negative 1. The negative of negative 1 is going to be positive 1. Okay, so our equation, or our graph, it has an axis of symmetry at x equals 1. So to find out the turning point, so turning point calculation, okay, what we do is substitute x equals 0, x equals 1, sub in x equals 1 to the original equation. Now, I have to look up here for what it was. So y equals x, so it was y equals 3x squared minus 6x plus 5. Now if I sub in x equals 1, I get y equals 3 times 1 squared minus 6 times 1 plus 5. 3 times 1 minus 6 plus 5. 3 minus 6 plus 5 equals 3 minus 6 is negative 3 plus 5 is 2. Okay, so my turning point, I'll write it over here, TP, short, is going to be 1, 2. Okay, so let's put all that information into a graph. Okay, so I'll draw this, oops. Alright, so we know there's no x-intercepts. We know the turning point is at 1, 2, so let's mark that in. 1, 2 is up here somewhere. Okay, so I'll put a little cross there. I know a cross is there, so it's upright. And my no x-intercepts, my y-intercept is 5. Okay, so that makes sense. My y-intercept will be up here somewhere, 5. Okay, so basically it has to look like this. Okay, that's the only way we can draw it. We know it doesn't go through the x-axis, so it can't be flipped the other way. All right, so that is so we've got 2 points. That's the question. That question in a nutshell. I'm going to do another video for the second one here.